Hello, my name is John Deedy, Professor of Political Science at the Community Colleges of Baltimore County. Welcome to the Maryland Politics and Government podcast on Substack. Today, I am interviewing Lauren Lipscomb, who is a candidate for Baltimore County State's Attorney. Welcome back to the show.
Thank you so much for having me back. It's good to be back.
First question I want to ask is how's the campaign going? How's the knocking on doors, meeting people? How's everything going in general?
It's going well. It's busy and not, which is, fully what we expect and doing well, kind of going from event to event, knocking, lit dropping, doing all of the phone banking actually as well. And so lots of grassroots outreach, and it's going well. I think that people are responding very well to the message that we are providing. I think that people are responding very well, especially I think at this point, a lot of people have had the benefit of the three of us being able to observe the three of us side by side, and also being able to observe the three of us in terms of our different positions and all of that. And so I think that that has been of great benefit for me when I am that I've been able to be in various forums, and there was a debate as well. And when people are actually able to observe the three of us together, that seems to be where I end up with the most benefit. So it's going very well.
When you're at these forums and various things, what's the
Mm-hmm.
number one issue people are talking about in Baltimore County that they want you to address if you are elected?
So I would say that juvenile crime is typically what I hear about the most when I'm out in the community. The forums are a little bit different because it's always those can be a mix um, of community members as well as other candidates, us, and then campaign staff. And so it really depends on what event you're talking about. I would say that the events that we've been at, and then just out in the community, uh, for the most part, I am told crime is out of control. What am I going to do about it? I also am pulled aside often by people who say that, they whisper that it's time for change, that they think that it's time to move on from the incumbent. And then I also get people whispering to me that, the other challenger, that the inexperience of the other challenger really shines through. And so, but I would say in terms of what people are talking to me about, crime, juvenile crime, and people are. I get emails every single day about crime, and the perception, rightfully or wrongfully, that it's out of control.
Perception and reality are always two different things in general.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
One question I want to ask, and this relates to everything you've just talked about, was this year the Maryland General Assembly passed legislation known as the Youth Charging Reform
Yep.
Act. Give me your thoughts about what they did. Do you think it was a good idea, or are they out of their mind idea?
It was a terrible idea. The reality is that charging bill. So we had, I think, 33 offenses going into this legislative session that were eligible for automatic charging as adults, for certain offenses again. And the reason why that was categorically a bad idea is that what we've lost two charges that we can charge automatic as adults. We lost handgun charges as well as first degree assault for 16 and 17-year-olds. And the reality is that is going to directly cause increased crime after October 1st. That's number one. Number two, the way the system works now, there are off ramps when when a juvenile offender is charged in adult court. There are a number of steps that those juvenile offenders have that are really off ramps back down to the juvenile system. So what I mean by that is the best example, and I've actually personally handled these cases before. when a juvenile is charged as an adult, within a few months or so, they have the right of what's called a juvenile waiver hearing, where a court decides based on their individual circumstances, the nature of the crime, and all attendant, the totality of the circumstances, whether or not to keep that individual in adult court or send them back down to juvenile court. Every single time we charge a juvenile in adult court, they get a right, they have this right to a juvenile waiver hearing. What I will say is that's just one of the ways that a case could end up back in juvenile. But the bigger picture is that the person's individual juvenile status is considered at every single touch point. Initial appearance, bail reviews, pretrial hearings, anything you can, all of the touches when you're arrested to before you go to trial, the juvenile status of the offender is considered. So here's the problem. The problem is that when we're talking about a juvenile system that needs an incredible amount of work, and it's not going to be solved, the problems in the juvenile system are not going to be solved by any one person. It is going to have to be a collaboration across stakeholders, across different systems. But when you have the limited number of juveniles who actually are in the system, being arrested and being charged as adults, we are really talking about a very small number of individuals. This is not a large number of individuals. So going all the way around to this legislation, the legislature heard the sound arguments from every single sitting elected state's attorney in the state of Maryland. They also heard from law enforcement, chiefs and sheriffs in the state of Maryland. Law enforcement, we love to disagree with each other, but we all agreed on this. Everyone agreed. And it is mind-boggling to me, that the legislature chose to ignore the subject matter expertise of individuals who actually do the work day in and day out and understand the public safety ramifications of such a law. And they ignored public safety professionals, subject matter experts, all sitting 24 elected state's attorneys, they ignored in favor of data and academic data and other data from a lot of professionals who are not law enforcement and don't know crime trends. So when I say there will be blood on someone's hands, there will be, because come October 2nd of this year in Baltimore County, in particular, in Baltimore County, one of the crime trends is groups of teenagers, groups of juvenile offenders coming in from the city and committing carjackings, car thefts, burglaries, and so forth because of business requirements for drug shops in the city. It happens all the time. That's just the reality of it. Now, what is really naive of the legislature, now you've got sophisticated crime organizations who are salivating because they know not only can they send the juveniles to go grab cars, now they can be the ones that it's called taking the charge. They can be the ones to take the charge for the handguns as well, because they can tell the juveniles, look, hey, you're going to be out tomorrow because they're not going to hold you. And you'll be out, they'll arrest you again the next day and again and again and again, and you're going to keep coming out. We've got people, 14 arrests for, handgun violations and so forth in the juvenile system, and they go right back to the street. All of this to say that this is a very serious Error. Very serious error. And this is a different issue than housing. Charging and housing are not the same issue. Where to house the juveniles, that's a separate conversation. And I would agree that we have got to figure out how to keep juveniles who are arrested safe while they are awaiting trial and while they're being held, period, while they're in custody. They need to be safe, and while they're there, rehabilitative efforts, schooling, all of those things need to be occurring while juveniles are being held.
My next question deals with some of the stuff you've said, and it's along the lines of what the hell was the legislature, the George Soros groups of the world thinking, supporting something like this? Because crime is going down, and all of a sudden now it's like, well, it's going down, but let's see how this works. And because to me, I don't see crime going down because of it.
It's not going to. It's not going to. That is a complete that is an academic experiment gone haywire. I don't know what else to say. It's not the there are many reasons why crime is going down generally, and crime's regional. So, criminals don't say, oh, here I am at the county line, I'm going to, turn my car around. They don't do that. So crime is really regional, and the impacts and the spread of crime is really regional. And while violent crime is down, it is. The reality of passing a law like this is just counterintuitive. It's again, really for the reasons that I've already stated. We're going to end up with, actually, I would say, more aggravators when it comes to the crimes that are committed. More aggravators. We're going to see more guns. That's just the way it is. And I don't know that people really understand a first-degree assault is a very serious assault. That's when somebody has inflicted serious bodily injury, as in injury to an organ. We're talking about somebody who's been blinded, lost a limb, gone quadriplegic, something like that. These are very, very serious assaults that we have lost jurisdiction over.
One of the big issues that's come up a lot over the last few months since last time we talked, and it's those three words that people are really concerned about from crime and economic situation. The three words are towns and town center.
Yes.
And what the businesses that are leaving, and people are saying it's a crime problem, it's a juvenile problem, etc. How could you, as state's attorney, try to deal with some of that problem and reassure people that things aren't as bad as they seem? Or maybe you say, hey, maybe things are that bad, but here's what we have to do.
So I think that I'm going to use a term that the kids use nowadays. I think that it is irresponsible of leaders to gaslight the community that we serve. And I know the younger generations use that word a lot. But I really do. I believe that again, I go out into the community now all the time. I speak with folks all the time. On Nextdoor, on Facebook, I'm seeing people become their own crime reporters of sorts, to let people know in Baltimore County what's going on in terms of crimes that have occurred out in the community. There are, any number of, Nextdoor has some sort of like police reporter, police blotter type thing that residents use to find out more about what's going on in the community. I think the thing that strikes me about that is that there is a lack of information and a propensity for a lot of leaders in Baltimore County to say exactly that. No, there's no crime problem. I mean, right now we've got an incumbent state's attorney who is insisting that there is no crime problem. Towson Town Center, the reality is, whether you want to face it or not, whether anyone wants to face it or not, the reality is people simply won't go to Towson Town Center. Why? Because of crime. They don't want to have their car stolen. They don't want to be carjacked. They don't want to be on the wrong end of, a kind of like a group of teenagers who, are, you know, engaged in some sort of criminal type event of, type of criminal activity. And, I like to say it like that because there's nothing wrong with being a teenager and walking down the street. So I like to make sure we're distinguishing between, kids that are following the rules and the kids who are insisting on committing crimes. But people just simply don't want to be around that anymore. And the level of crime has gotten so out of control that businesses are leaving. Well, businesses are leaving because the revenue's down. That's it. People simply aren't going to live, work, shop where they don't feel safe. This isn't complicated.
I think part of it is Amazon rules the world. The
That
other thing
too.
is you reference the Nextdoor app. That is the best and worst app you can have.
Yes.
I needed a plumbing expert about 3 years ago. Great job. But sometimes the stuff that gets posted, I get irritated with the restaurant reviews, but it starts with, I went here last night, and then you have to open up to find out if they had a good or bad time. And I find that, like I said, it's the best and worst app in the world. If you need something like a plumber or something, you could get some really good recommendations. But a lot of other stuff, it becomes a ranting machine.
Yes, yes, yes. Yes.
My next question is, how would you change the state's attorney's office from how it's run now? If you're in charge day one, what would you change? What would you do?
So, first, post trial needs the state's attorney's office needs a formalized post trial unit. Post trial prosecution. I'm a veteran prosecutor. I've been um, prosecuting for the better part of 20 years, a little bit more than 20 years at this point. And so what that does is that actually gives you a unique perspective into the criminal justice system to know where the weaker areas in prosecution are. So in Baltimore County State's Attorney's Office, a formalized post-trial unit is absolutely necessary. What that means is having a team of prosecutors reviewing violation of probation dockets, violation of probation cases, to identify those cases in which the state needs to get involved. That's number one. But I mean in a formalized way through a formalized unit as well. There needs to be an integrity component as well. And so you could call it conviction integrity, because this is what I do right now in the city is I oversee the conviction integrity unit. So I would say that there needs to be a post-trial unit that basically handles all post-trial matters, because we right now are dealing with, a legislature, for example, that is ever expanding expungement, as an example. And that creates an incredibly high workload. And so there needs to be sort of a formalized unit that handles those kinds of matters. And in post-trial, we have the tools of violation of probation in difficult cases that may be a little bit more difficult to move forward on pre-trial. So the reason why that matters here in Baltimore County and frankly in any jurisdiction is that domestic violence and sex offense cases are notoriously difficult to prosecute. And so in those instances in which we aren't able to move forward with a case because of something like it's a 5-year-old victim, or it's a woman who may not want to come forward, then we may plead out a case to less than what it's worth, and then the person would be on supervision, right? So, and once that person goes out and violates, we as the state need to come in and actually make sure that the violation sticks and that they get the backup time that is owed to the state of Maryland. So post trial is very important. That's within 100 days. And I've got the technical experience, I've got the management experience, I've got the leadership experience. I could run that office. If somebody said you need to go over there tomorrow and run the office, I'd be able to do it without a problem. That said, I will be able to institute a formal post-trial unit. Secondly, a community engagement arm as well that is specifically tasked with going out into the community, not for photo ops, but to go out into the community to make sure that the state's attorney's office stays having a pulse check on what's going on in the community and what the sense is in the community in terms of trends, perceived or otherwise. Lastly, we are talking about this a lot on the campaign trail, but technology, data analytics need this. The office needs to have a standalone website. The office needs to have probably, depending on what internal case management system they use, there needs to be an overhaul of the technology because the data is not there. And if there's no data and no metrics, then things like budget asks and going down and testifying in Annapolis, those are the kinds of things that you're not able to quantify with statistics.
My next question centers on one of the things that I always find aggravating about campaigns in general, and that is this campaign and a variety of others across the state have featured a huge influx of dark money. People that don't even live in Maryland, outside groups coming in and descending with checkbooks, et cetera, because they think they know what's best. How do you deal with the situation, the frustrations, et cetera, of basically various groups putting their thumb on the scale for something when they really don't know an area very well?
So I will say that I would echo that. I think that I would echo and underscore not knowing an area very well, because what's going on here is that we have a candidate, the other challenger, who is teed up and kind of taking money from anybody for under any circumstances. And when I say that, I mean that the money that when we're talking about large piles of money from individuals who are like lawyers in DC, for example, who really don't have an interest in Baltimore County politics, what you see is a pattern, and it's a social agenda, a social pattern. That having been said, it is not. I was just as surprised as everybody else to learn that there was Soros money coming into this campaign. And, now we know, there was a report this morning in the Baltimore Banner. Now we know that we've got this Soros linked fund that is sending out mailers and so forth in support of the challenger, David. And if you look at the totality of circumstances, because again, this is what I do for a living. I investigate cases. I'm an actual prosecutor. I'm not sitting doing, public corruption pleas. If you look at a totality of the circumstances, you can connect the dots as to all of this support and the entire universe of support for that particular candidate is in fact a Soros-style crime policy support. So that's a misread of Baltimore County. That's a serious misread. Baltimore County is in no way going to tolerate Soros-based crime policy in Baltimore County. And I'm going to tell you this right now. I watched it. I'm on my 4th state's attorney in Baltimore City. My 4th. I was hired by State's Attorney Patricia Jessamy. I spent 8 years watching how much of a disaster Soros-based crime policy is for an office and for a community. We lost about 500 more people to murder over that 8-year period than we had in the previous 8-year period. Now, with State's Attorney Bates, the homicide rate has plummeted to a 50-year low. That's because that is not an accident. That's those policies in 2015 to 2022, those policies absolutely skyrocketed crime. Absolutely. The community just simply wasn't as safe. The end. It just wasn't. So now we've got a candidate who, who wants to end automatic adult jurisdiction for all juveniles under any circumstances, and wants to bring these crime policies to Baltimore County. Well, what's going to happen? If this person's elected, I'll tell you what's going to happen. Everyone's going to leave the state's attorney's office because no one's going to want to work for an inexperienced Soros-backed candidate. I can tell you that right now. That's what happened in this city. So you're going to lose staff. You're going to lose experience. You're going to lose people who actually know what they're doing. That's number one. And number two, the community is going to suffer because crime will go up. It will, because of the combination of both the inexperience, the crime policies, the lack of experience in the line, in the staff. And so, it really is, I think, a reckoning. But I'm glad that you brought that up, because just this morning, the banner, I think the media is doing a very good job of making sure that people really understand what you're getting into here. And so, I certainly think that of the three choices here, I am absolutely the best candidate for this job, the best candidate for this job.
The final question centers on kind of a little bit of what you've said before, and that is kind of a two-part question. First, do you fear a return, that basically having Baltimore County become kind of Marilyn Mosby 2.0? The other question is, why should people vote for you?
Yeah. So as to the first question, that's absolutely that's exactly what we're doing. That's what it is. That would be and I don't want to in any way malign anyone by name, but I am alluding to she was in fact the state's attorney from 2015 to 2022. And yes, an electing challenger, David, would bring, that is a moving of Ms. Mosby and those crime policies right out to Baltimore County. So voters want if they want to experience for themselves what is the academic experiment of George Soros funded crime policies, then they should vote for her. If they want to stay with the incumbent and do, the status quo, then that's great for them. If they want a new approach, someone who will bring the energy and the fight that we need to get focused, to stay focused on the problem at hand, which is rising crime and juvenile crime, Towson, Randallstown, White Marsh, these areas that are becoming these hot pockets. What I will bring to the citizens of Baltimore County is steady leadership, experience, expertise, and innovation that I know how to deliver, and execute, because I have the technical experience, I have the management experience, I have the leadership experience. So my vision for the office: post-trial unit, advanced technology, community engagement. Immediately, I know how to develop a program and execute that, because I have the experience, the proven record of experience in having done that in Baltimore City.
I want to thank you again for your time, and good luck on the campaign trail.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you having me back.
You're welcome.